Hello all together and welcome to the Enable Now Consulting Edition. What's new for the current release 21.11. As always, for the files, if you don't want your name, your face, your voice, or whatever personal information being exposed to others, please disconnect now since this meeting is now being recorded. All right, guys, I will share my screen and we jump into it immediately. There is not that many news this time, but let's see. Majority of what happened in the current release took place more or less under the radar of the UI. We are final with the manager redesign, or close to final. So there are a lot of stuff happened there in terms of refactoring and modularization. And on the other hand, we finalized the tracking renewal. So everything that we track is now tracked on Tincan. We're going to go into detail here in a second, and I will explain what that means. So, but now let's just get started. Performance support is the first chapter, and this is where the majority of the news are in, as it is since a couple of releases. That's the main development focus. So let's see. First page deals with Ariba, and there we got news, but I will show you what that effectively means. I'm not at all an Ariba expert. Yeah, and so for me, it's hard to find out where you are in the current situation, where there's sourcing and strategic sourcing suite and blah. However, let's have a concrete look. Where's my browser? There's my browser. There is my Ariba. And now let's just get back here and hope that the session is still not timed out. There we go. So that's Ariba. I'm logged in as an administrator. So basically, I have access to all the modules, and there is plenty of functionality that I have no clue about. However, as seen here, let me just get rid of this tag here. There is the question mark, and the question mark, as always in Ariba, is occupied by their original help center and the events and contact us functionality. Yeah, so that was already in use. So what we're going to end up in Ariba in general is, and there is one functionality I found where Web Assistant is in from that what's new list, which is create a guided sourcing request or project, whatever that means, is the fact that we're going to help with help. Yeah, so this is still Help Center. This is Web Assistant. Web Assistant is in that case visualized as a sidebar widget that flies out. At that point, everything is fully supported down to the object. The amount of standard content is obviously quite limited. Yeah? That's what it is. Learning Center, there is some stuff in for parts of the modules, but due to the lack of my Ariba expertise, I cannot really figure out what, just going back to that slide, what that means. Yeah, I don't know where I'm leaving guided sourcing, entering other parts of the application, since I've not that much of experience here. So effectively, what that means is, as you see, let's go back to the guide. That we proceed. So it's going further, but it's not yet fully supported. And in my humble opinion, this is quite confusing. If you got that widget in parts of the screens, but the other widget is the main help, and in some contexts you have something, in other contexts you don't. So basically, just still be aware of the fact that this is not fully supported yet, and just take care that we are not going to have any overselling here. It's progressing as seen, but it's not covered to the full extent yet. There is another application which is now supported with standard content and Web Assistant called convergent charging. I tried to find a system to show you, but I have no clue what that does. I wasn't able to. Yeah. So if anybody of you has any experience with that particular functionality or module, please share your wisdom. I don't know. Yeah, but in fact, we got a new green tick mark on our list of supported applications, and it's called convergent charging. Well, Ariba, that's just a table I stole from a presentation yesterday. That's in fact what's happened. There you see it's like it's a bit like patchwork. Yeah. So some are equipped with standard content, some are not. In some, custom content would be available, but it's quite inconsistent. Yeah. So just take care. It is as it is. We are progressing and hoping that somewhere within the next year we have full Ariba web assistant integration and really stop confusing people in these terms. Well, Ariba. Next one, the web assistant improvements in general. One big step regarding authentication and all the authentication stuff is the authentication iframe, which was considered as disturbing. Yeah, so it's simply not visible anymore, which gives us one less point of failure. If people would just be annoyed by the pop-up coming up every time and closing it beforehand or suppressing it even by not allowing iframes anymore. That was all of scenarios that we had where authentication failed because of certain settings. It simply doesn't happen, which doesn't mean that there is no iframe no more. It's just saying that it's not visible anymore. The iframe is then set to invisible. The authentication happens in the background. It still happens, and the time, the delay time from the iframe being invisible, if an authentication fails, until the fallback scenario kicks in, which would be the form-based authentication, can be chosen based on a new parameter, which is documented in the Web Assistant Integration Guide. So there's one new parameter around this feature, which is new since the last factory release of Web Assistant. The Don't Show Me Again announcements, including the detachment of a lightbox content to another browser tab and close, are now consolidated. I believe this was a big step forward from the perspective of UI consolidation. No, makes total sense, but there is not much more to say except of the fact that you got everything that's related to the lightbox as such for push announcements at one place. Good one. In the context of authentication, this is one thing that I just want to point to, because this was an issue with several customers lately. This is a cutout from the integration guide, and that deals with the Apple Safari settings. I don't know whether one of you already stumbled upon that. I did several times in the last weeks, where customers were effectively adding Apple iOS devices to their infrastructure, especially for HR and SuccessFactors users. The Apple Safari for iOS has a prevent cross-site tracking security switch, which is kind of special in comparison with other browsers, and that one is per default set to true. Whatever you do in your network's policy settings, in the Windows policy settings, the prevent cross-site tracking switch of Safari will win. And that thing means no cross-site nothing, no iframes, no nothing. If this is set to true and the single end user would not be able to switch it off or whatever, do any modifications on that tablet device, it will prevent Web Assistant from authentication. Yeah, no relation to this. Yeah, this only means the iframe is not visible anymore, but it's still existing, and the authentication request is still coming from another domain, which means if prevent cross-site tracking is active on an Apple Safari device, whatever that is, no authentication, no Web Assistant. The only chance to get this solved is either allow it globally, and that's a bit of a lack of functionality within the Safari settings, because you cannot whitelist or blacklist specific domains. So it's just on or off. And this is what we lately did with a global pharmaceutical company located here in Germany, where they really struggled with that, is that we had to go via a reverse proxy to mimic same-site scripting. That's just the same as we do for the older S/4HANA on-premise installations with the SAP web dispatcher, to just pretend that everything is coming from the same domain using that proxy server. If you run into this, effectively the only chance to really get it solved properly and compliant from an IT security perspective is ask the customer's administrators if they would be able to add our authentication domains into a specific rule on their reverse proxy to mimic same-site scripting. There is at least to my knowledge, there is no other option right at the moment. Just to let you know, because it happened quite often in the last weeks. Any questions here? Good. So some more improvements regarding the end user experience. We got auto start guided tours from arbitrary step, from any step, right? Since the last factory in Web Assistant, which was possible since ever in Desktop Assistant. The feature in Desktop Assistant was called start tour from arbitrary step. In Web Assistant, that means if you trigger a guided tour, including a deep link to a certain screen of a functionality within the target application, the guided tour will start from the first logical step that fits to the context of that particular screen. You cannot choose. So if you pass by the same context potentially more than once, it will use the first occasion. That's important. It's not selectable. It just starts from the first logical step that fits to the context, but you can trigger it. And take care, that's only available for contents, for guided tour contents, which are stored on Enable Now managers. This is not possible for guided tours that are stored in the UACP, which means for the S/4HANA content, for instance. For the standard guided tours coming from the UACP, this feature is not yet supported. So here again, take care in regards of potential overselling. This is only for tours that you want to use. Lately, I had that. I want that for the guided tours that are in. Okay, the only chance here for now is fetching them, getting them out, overlaying them with the local copy. Basically, by doing so, you convert them into an Enable Now Manager stored guided tour, and then it again works fine. But as long as they are coming, or as long as they are delivered from UACP only, it will not yet work. They are working on that. Not sure whether there will be a solution or not. But however, this is your workaround in case you are asked for. Small one, harmonization, self-explaining. UI language tie, also self-explaining. The lightbox is now overall accessible. So basically any link can be triggered into the lightbox. So you avoid having multiple tabs and avoid the lost in hyperspace phenomenon by forcing basically everything that you want to force into the lightbox. In it, especially for link tiles, which was really a missing one, which is now possible. So the switch that you know from others is now available there as well. Some cleanups in the authoring UI, quite good, I believe. It's reducing the number of tabs. It just reduced complexity, and basically that's self-explaining. You will see as soon as you jump in Web Assistant authoring the next time. Title bars have been requested for help bubbles as well. They were only usable within guided tours so far. Now you can have the title wherever you want. Also kind of a standardization. Going ahead with editing improvements, we got simplified recognition indication. This is now self-explaining finally. So it's just 4 levels of quality, excellent, good. The language dependent now comes with the corresponding indication, and weak says don't touch it. That's just a facelift in terms of the indication when selecting a hotspot.